The annual Carter family reunion was in full swing at my parents' apartment in Riverside Towers, the same building where half my family had lived for the past 20 years. The same building I had quietly purchased last week through one of my investment companies. I stood by the window, nursing a glass of cheap wine my mother had specifically bought for me, since that's probably what you're used to, Emma. The irony of drinking bottom-shelf Merlot while wearing a watch worth more than their monthly rent wasn't lost on me. Emma. My cousin Jessica's voice cut through the dull roar of family gossip. I didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be too busy showing studio apartments to college students. I turned to face her, taking in her designer dress and obvious new nose job, both probably funded by her husband's rapidly dwindling trust fund. If only she knew I owned the hedge fund that was currently shorting his family's company. I managed to find the time, I replied mildly. So generous of you, my sister Diana chimed in, settling onto the couch with the air of someone who owned it. Taking time off from your, what are you calling it these days? Boutique real estate agency. The corners of my mouth twitched. Carter Holdings, my boutique agency, had just closed its 100th major commercial acquisition this quarter. Our real estate portfolio was worth billions, though the name Emma Carter appeared on none of the paperwork. To the world and my family, I was just the failed realtor who couldn't hack it in the big leagues. Something like that, I said, watching Diana smooth her expensive skirt with manicured hands. The same hands that had signed a lease renewal last month, unknowingly making me her landlord. Did you hear about Diana's latest investment? My mother called out, eager as always to showcase her successful daughter. She just bought her third rental property. The room erupted in appreciative murmurs. Diana preened under the attention. Just a small duplex, she said modestly. But the rental income is fantastic. That's what happens when you understand the market. I thought about the report on my desk showing that her fantastic duplex was actually hemorrhaging money. She'd overpaid by nearly 40% in a declining neighborhood. You should ask Diana for advice, my father added, giving me that familiar disappointed look. Maybe then you wouldn't be stuck showing those tiny apartments. If they only knew about the skyline-altering development deal I was closing next week. The one that would reshape the entire downtown area. I'm doing okay, I said quietly. Okay. Jessica laughed. Emma honey, you live in a one-bedroom rental. That's not okay, that's tragic. My one-bedroom rental was actually the penthouse of my most exclusive building downtown. The waiting list for units in that building was 3 years long. Speaking of real estate, my Aunt Susan jumped in. Did you all hear about that mysterious investor buying up half the city? They say she's worth billions, but nobody knows who she is. I took another sip of the terrible wine, hiding my smile. They were talking about EC Holdings, my primary investment company. The business papers had been speculating about the identity of the hidden real estate queen for months. Probably some old money heiress, Diana scoffed. Unlike some people, she actually knows what she's doing. Unlike Emma, you mean? Jessica smirked. Remember when she tried to sell that luxury condo and the buyers backed out? What a disaster. They all laughed, remembering what they thought was my biggest failure. None of them knew I'd actually arranged for those buyers to back out so I could purchase the building myself at a reduced price. It was now one of the most profitable properties in my portfolio. At least Emma tries, my mother sighed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. We can't all be as successful as Diana. Diana stood up, walking to the kitchen for more wine. Well, someone has to show her how it's done. Did I mention I'm looking at another property? One of those beautiful Victorian conversions downtown. I knew the property she meant. I'd already bought it through a shell company last month. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Mom beamed. See, Emma? That's how you build a real estate empire. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. Probably another update about the Riverside Towers acquisition. The paperwork finalizing my purchase of this very building had been completed yesterday. None of my family members had any idea that their lease renewals would now come through one of my management companies. How much are you paying for the Victorian? I asked innocently. Diana named a figure that made me wince internally. The property wasn't worth half that amount, and the area was already oversaturated with similar conversions. That's quite an investment, I said carefully. Oh, what would you know about real investments? Jessica rolled her eyes. Stick to your little rentals, Emma. Leave the big deals to people who understand money. The room erupted in laughter again. I glanced around at my family members, all of them living in my building, all of them about to receive some very interesting letters in their mailboxes tomorrow morning. You're right, I said softly. I should stick to what I know. Speaking of which, my father interjected, your mother and I have been meaning to talk to you about the rent here. It's getting a bit steep with the new management company. Maybe you could talk to them? You must know some people in the industry even at your level. Oh, I knew the management company quite well. In fact, I'd specifically instructed them to raise the rent by 15% across the board, except for the units occupied by my family. Those would be going up by 25%. I'll see what I can do, I replied, knowing exactly what I would do. Diana patted my arm condescendingly. Don't worry too much about it, Dad. I'm sure my new investments will pay off soon. I can help with the rent if needed. I suppressed a smile thinking about the stack of paperwork sitting in my office downtown. Diana's sure-thing investments were about to hit several unexpected obstacles with permits, zoning and financing. Amazing how many doors closed when the mysterious EC Holdings expressed concerns about a property. That's so generous of you, Mom gushed. Always looking out for the family. Unlike. She didn't finish the sentence, but her pointed glance in my direction said everything. Well, Jessica raised her glass. Here's to Diana showing us all how it's done in real estate. Everyone cheered. I pretended to sip the awful wine, making a mental note to have my assistant send over some actually decent bottles tomorrow. They'd arrive right after the notices about the new ownership and rent increases. Really, Emma, Diana continued, warming to her favorite topic, my failures. If you just listened to me years ago, you might actually own something by now. Instead of, what was it you said last month? Just trying to make ends meet. I thought about my real estate empire, the billions in assets, the dozens of buildings I owned across the city. You're right, Diana. If only I'd listened to you. It's not too late, she said magnanimously. I could take you under my wing, teach you the basics. Maybe start you off with something small like managing one of my properties. The irony was almost painful. I checked my watch 15 hours until the new ownership notices would arrive in their mailboxes. 15 hours until they discovered that the struggling little sister actually owned every roof over their heads. That's very kind, I said, setting down my wine glass. But I think I'll manage. The next morning, I sat in my corner office on the 50th floor of downtown's most prestigious building, watching the sun rise over my city. My assistant, Michael, placed a stack of certified mail receipts on my desk. All notices have been delivered, he reported, including the special ones for your family's units. I glanced at my watch. 7:45 a.m. The building's mail was usually sorted by 8 o'clock. Has there been any response? I asked, though I knew it was too early. Not yet, but Michael was interrupted by my phone buzzing. Diana's name flashed on the screen. Right on schedule, I smiled. Let's see how my successful sister handles this. I put the phone on speaker just as a second call came in, my mother. Then a third, Jessica. Within minutes, my entire family was trying to reach me. I answered Diana's call first. This has to be a mistake, she said immediately, her voice shrill. Our rent can't be going up by 25%. And what's this about new ownership? EC Holdings. Wait, isn't that the mysterious investor everyone's been talking about? Good morning to you too, Diana, I replied calmly. Emma, this is serious. I need you to talk to someone at the management company. Use your connections. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. Pie connections? Yes. I know you're just a small-time agent, but you must know someone who can help. Mom and Dad can't afford this increase, and my investment properties aren't generating revenue yet, and about those investments, I cut in smoothly. I should mention that EC Holdings has expressed serious concerns about the Victorian property you're trying to buy. I expect you'll be hearing from the zoning board soon. Silence. Then, how do you know that? The same way I know about your duplex losing money. The same way I know your husband's been lying about his commissions. The same way I know Jessica's husband's trust fund is almost depleted. I paused. I know everything, Diana. I always have. What are you talking about? EC Holdings. Emma Carter Holdings. I own this building. I own most of your investment properties. I own half the city. The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible, Diana whispered. You're broke. You're a failure. You dash. Need to check my mailbox for an eviction notice? I finished for her. No, I don't think so. But you might want to check yours again. Particularly the part about lease termination at owner's discretion. I could hear papers rustling as she frantically reread the notice. You can't evict us. We've lived here for 20 years. Actually, I can. Just like I can deny permits for your Victorian conversion. Just like I can call in the loans on your failing duplex. Just like I can dash. Stop. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this? Why? I stood up, walking to my window. Because for years you've all treated me like a failure. Made jokes at my expense. Used me as a cautionary tale. Yesterday, you offered to teach me the basics of real estate while sitting in a building I own. My phone was still buzzing with other family calls. I put Diana on hold and answered my mother's call. Emma, she sounded like she'd been crying. There must be some mistake. They're saying our rent is going up and the building's been sold and dash. No mistake, Mom. I bought the building. Along with most of the properties in the city that Diana thought she was so clever for wanting to invest in. You, what? Remember last night? When you were all laughing about my failed career. I was sitting there wearing a watch worth more than your apartment, drinking that cheap wine you bought specially for your unsuccessful daughter. But how? Because I'm EC Holdings, Mom. The mysterious investor everyone's been talking about? That's me. The real estate queen reshaping the city? Also me. The owner of every roof over this family's head? Me again. I heard her sink into a chair. All this time, I confirmed. Every family gathering where you compared me to Diana, every holiday where you mocked my little real estate career, every snide comment about my supposed failure, I was already more successful than all of you combined. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have mattered? You only respect success you can see and brag about. Well, now you can see it. All of it. Including the eviction notices. You wouldn't really evict your own family. Why not? You had no problem treating me like I wasn't family every time you thought I wasn't successful enough. I hung up and turned to Michael. Send in the second set of notices. He raised an eyebrow. The ones about their other properties? Yes. Let's show them exactly how much power EC Holdings has in this city. Within hours, my family's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Diana's Victorian conversion was denied permits. Her duplex received multiple code violation notices. Jessica's husband's trust fund transactions were flagged for audit. My parents' lease on their small business space, in another building I owned, came under review. The family group chat exploded. Diana, this can't be happening. Jessica, how can Emma own all this? Mom, we need to talk about this as a family. Dad, there must be some way to appeal. I left them on read and turned to the business section of the morning paper. There was my company EC Holdings, making headlines again with another major acquisition. The article even mentioned the mysterious CEO's latest purchase, Riverside Towers. My phone buzzed one more time. Diana again. What do you want? Her voice was barely a whisper. I thought about all the years of mockery, all the family gatherings where I was the cautionary tale, all the times they dismissed my success because they couldn't see it. I want you to understand something, I said quietly. Every time you bragged about your real estate empire, you were playing in my sandbox. Every property you thought you were so clever for wanting to buy, I already owned it. Every bit of advice you tried to give me about making it in real estate, I was your landlord. Please, she whispered, don't destroy everything. Like you tried to destroy my confidence, my reputation, my place in this family. Silence. The notices stand, I said firmly. Consider it a lesson in real estate. Sometimes the person you think is failing is actually your boss. I ended the call and turned back to my window, looking out at my city. Below, I could see my family's cars parked in the spots I owned, in front of the building I owned, surrounded by the empire I'd built while they were busy mocking my failure. Sometimes success doesn't need to be announced. Sometimes it's better to let it speak for itself, preferably through registered mail with eviction notices attached.